welcome to Season 2 of the Florida Band Podcast. You know why you're here. We're kicking off this season with a 3-part series that features a casual chat with our friend and mentor, Dr. Andrew F. Poore. Dr. Poore is the band director at South Forsyth Middle School in Cumming, Georgia. His bands have performed as featured ensembles at middle school band festivals at the University of Alabama, University of Georgia, and Troy University. They have also performed as a featured ensemble at the Georgia Music Educators Association State In-Service Conference. He has presented at the Midwest Clinic, Ohio Music Educators Association State Conference, Florida Music Educators Association State Conference, and at many Georgia Music Educators Association State In-Service Conferences. Dr. Poore received his Doctor of Music Education and Master of Music in Trumpet Performance at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. He previously received his Bachelor of Music Education from the University of Florida. In this 3-part series, we'll cover many topics, from communicating with students and parents to student motivation. We hope you enjoyed this information-filled chat with Dr. Poore.
Those percussionists don't
be so
do
bored.
hardly anything.
Right.
It's a great piece. If you had your band meeting here and your percussionist meeting here, and you put them together after school.
True, because then you can keep the percussion entertained with something else.
Engaged and growing. Like they literally just rest and then play a crash cymbal, and they rest and do some rolls, and the percussion parts are minimal.
Yeah.
So in my situation, that's a piece that I would never consider programming. Not because I don't think it's a great piece. I had an all-state tuba player this year. We probably could have played it. Mm-hmm. I had pretty good horns. I have a phenomenal oboist. When we played the Strange Humors, he played English horn in 7th grade.
Oh,
dang.
Gosh.
We don't even have an English horn. Where'd you acquire an English horn?
We don't own one.
Okay.
We borrowed it from Lambert.
Okay.
Wow.
I guess that's what you would have to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That particular student was a student that had started playing oboe prior to coming to 6th grade for about 6 months. So he had about a 6-month head start. Has been studying privately, and
Wow.
made district honor band as a 6th grader, and then made all state as a 7th.
That's impressive.
Wow. Jeez. This year they just started letting 6th graders audition for All County, but they kind of told us a little late. So
Yeah. It was like one director had a 6th grader who was ready, and said something, to the All County people about it, and they permitted it. So hopefully,
I just don't. I don't understand why we should be in the business of providing enhanced opportunities, not limiting opportunities. Mm-hmm. I think if there's something that students are ready for, I mean, I understand there's a balance between feeling the need to push kids too fast, which could happen. That could be the Pandora's box that some people are afraid of.
Yeah.
But I think some of those people who say Pandora's box, it comes back to taking the worst case scenario and then superimposing that on the lack of professional judgment on everyone else, and I don't think that's the case.
well, what do you say about withholding certain experiences for retention purposes? So, like, for example, at our school we have a little marching band that performs in a parade and goes to Universal. As of right now, we don't let 6th graders do that until they hit, 7th grade, or first-year band students until they hit 7th grade.
I mean, I think that's okay, only because I think there's a level of physical maturity you need, and I think there's a level of a musical experience. I mean...
Okay.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't apply to maybe an audition for an honor band?
No, I see them as different is because one is a collective group activity. Like, I personally would not take 6th graders on an overnight trip.
Okay. Yeah.
I know a couple schools that do, and they have a lot of issues with just the maturity of the kids. There's a big difference between a 6th grader and an 8th grader.
Oh, yeah.
Physical maturity, emotional maturity.
Now, some of our 8th graders are less mature now than they were in 6th grade.
Oh, well, definitely.
That's a COVID thing.
Mainly the boys, but... Yeah.
Definitely COVID has stunted that.
Mm-hmm. So you've seen that too?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I think we all knew it intuitively, and especially the people that were advocating for not shutting down and keeping everything wide open. Their valid concerns was the impact that it would have on kids long term, and obviously that was being balanced against the health risks of catching COVID or spreading COVID maybe to. Because initially people thought young people weren't getting it, and so they thought it wouldn't be bad for them to come to school. But the bigger issue is that they could catch it and then pass it off to a grandmother who lives in the house or an older parent. And so I think balancing those two things was always one of the big struggles. But we've definitely seen the negative impact of students only interacting with people via their computer. We've seen an escalation of negative behavior on electronics, both in terms of not being able to disconnect from them, but also having like inappropriate conversations happening online. And so I do think I believe in the adage that hurting people hurt people, and so when you have kids acting out and doing a lot of negative things toward each other, to me that's a big red flag that they're hurting in some way, and that we need to try to help them. But like for us, when you stop and think about it, like the current 6th graders, the last time they had a regular year of school was 3rd grade. So in terms of their full interaction, full developmental experiences, and of course that varies. It varied school to school, family to family, kid to kid, and some of the students who went face to face the whole time, you would think, okay, they're just going to be fine, but they're not, because they were in school, they had a big group of friends, they were in large classes, and then they were in small classes, and their friends, they couldn't see them, they couldn't play with them, they couldn't interact with them. The only way they interacted with them was on Discord or some chat group or group me. And then all of a sudden now they're back, but a lot can change in 2 years. Yeah. With how you see the world, and then you'd imagine your best friend was virtual, you were in person, you're going to school, they're not. Now you come back together. It's not going to just be like pick up where we left off. Yeah. So the socialization aspect, that's what I think we do that's so important, because I think we quickly and probably more effectively than a lot of groups integrate students into a group and working as a team, understanding that many hands make light loads, so that interaction with other people, and I play a role in that, is really important to them getting back to being a part of something bigger than themselves, because when they were locked down, it was them and a computer. Yeah. They were in a tiny little bubble, and that we've seen that. I was talking to one of my guidance counselors, and they had a record number of emergency interventions this year. So emergency interventions range from just general mental breakdowns to suicide to other things where they have to like stop everything they're doing. They bring the child in. They have to bring in additional assessments. They had a record number. So this is the first year back after shut down, and then a full year of who knows what, depending on the child's experience.
I wonder what the data looks like from our school, because I do feel like we've had more physical altercations on campus this year, like between students. At least the way it seems. It seems like for a little while there was one every day, you know.
Yeah, they're also more physical in other ways. It's weird to say, but like, you know,
yeah,
the affection side,
yeah,
especially just like friends. But I mean, I see more boys sitting on other boys' laps than anything. Like in middle school, where and I'm not even making a comment about orientation. It's just like the boys are like on each other.
Yeah,
a lot.
Well,
I see that a lot. The girls too.
The girls
even,
too.
You know,
if I don't know what it was like for your families, but I know a lot of the families of the students I taught, they didn't have any physical interaction with their friends.
Yeah.
They weren't seeing them outside of the home. They weren't like they weren't doing church. They weren't doing other activities. They weren't going to restaurants. They were only way they were seeing people besides their nuclear family was through a computer screen. So
yeah, I think it was like that, but maybe it was more short-lived than yours, simply because we live in Florida, and Florida ran COVID differently.
And that's true for Georgia too. I mean, there are parts of Georgia that didn't really do things differently, and a lot of it is a family-based decision. I teach a lot of students that live in multi-generational homes, and so if you remember the vaccine rollout in 21, it was like November, December, the most at risk got it. And then they started opening it up a little bit at a time, and it took a long time for it to get to a majority of the adults.
That's true, it did.
So
we didn't even get ours till like March, our first dose.
So those multi-generational homes,
March, April,
their concern, and I think it was valid, was that they didn't want their child going to school, being around all that. And so one of the things that we were able to do for the students that did come to in person, which helped us, this was the advantage of smaller classes, is we were able to be 6x6 and 6x9, and we were not allowed to require masks, but we did have bell covers. And fortunately for us, we did have some students last year, 2021, who got COVID. And then they had a pretty strict quarantine. So like if you were around somebody, you got, you had to stay home for like a week or whatever. And we never had a single student who, a band student gave it to another band student.
Oh.
That's good.
So I feel like we were able to be as safe as possible. And I know correlation does not equal causation, so I can't back that up scientifically. But I think correlationally speaking, I feel like we were able to keep them safe. This year we were able to sit 3 feet apart. And again, we didn't have a single incident of band-to-band COVID transmission. We did have band students who got it. A lot of times they got it from an older sibling who had probably gotten it from high school.
You know what's funny? We did have some kids pass it to each other, from what I overheard. But it was on the 8th grade trip to Universal, like in May.
Oh,
So
I thought
it
you
wasn't
meant we as in
necessarily
band kids.
Well, it was like band and
2
orchestra
band
kids.
Okay, but they were on the bus.
But it wasn't in our class. It wasn't from our classes.
Right. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, because we set I tried to set those dots up 3 feet apart. So
Yeah. I mean, just from what the kids have said.
We did our Disney trip. We had 4 full buses, and we didn't have any problems on the trip, and we didn't have anybody get it after the trip.
Nice.
Cool.
The Disney trip, are you guys still doing that sight reading?
No, we performed So one of my big core beliefs is that we practice to perform.
Yeah.
We don't practice to practice. And I come from that viewpoint personally. My favorite thing to do as a musician was to perform. And probably my least favorite thing to do is to practice scales. And I learned the importance of practicing scales so that I could perform. But I think...
Wait, can you please tell our students this, this
Next week? Yeah.
So I think that the hardest thing for me in teaching it last year in 2021 was we were severely limited with our performances. So our first concert we weren't even allowed to have it until after the first 9 weeks was over, and no people were allowed to be present.
Mm-hmm.
And I
remember watching that.
And we had to be socially distanced, so there was like 6 feet apart. So having an ensemble of middle school students spread out as far as we were spread out, trying to play together, was hard. And without an audience, even though they knew people were watching online, it's not the same. Like you finish playing,
and there's silence.
I know, because we were watching online, and we remember being like, that's gotta be so weird.
Yeah, it's like, that sucks.
So for the kids, to a certain degree, it felt like band class. You know, they were in their concert attire.
Right.
It was in the evening. It was in a different space, but... Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then our winter concerts, which is when I was sick with COVID, I wasn't able to be there, but like we were allowed to have... Each student was allowed to bring 2 people.
Wow.
And then we had to set up chairs so that everybody was socially distanced. And so then that was still hard because there were people like, you know, I have a brother and a sister and a mom and dad, and only 2 people can come. So my mom and dad can't come because they can't leave.
Or one parent can come and bring a sibling.
Yeah, right.
So then we still were doing the live broadcasts, the live feeds, which, you know, from an audio standpoint, the people listening, like, that was going through a compressor mic on a laptop. Like, it wasn't being mixed with, like, you know, true quality microphones. And so it's still not the same experience. And we had to do that pretty much. Our LGPE had nobody in the audience.
Oh my gosh.
So we were able to have it. Some places weren't. So it was still good, but it still wasn't the same.
This past March.
Yeah. So for me, this year I went crazy. We did 12 performances this year.
Oh, so 2 years ago, LGPE was empty.
No, last year.
So like
2 years ago, it was canceled.
Okay.
Because the week the world shut down in the United States.
Yeah.
That was our LGPE week.
Okay. So not your most recent LGPE, the one right before that.
So yeah,
while we were still
21.
Got it.
Nobody was in the audience.
Got
22 was like a normal LGPE.
Okay. So come back to the 12 performances. So you went crazy.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
All right.
Now those some of that was because we had the invitational performances at UGA and GMA. So that automatically added 4 more performances than we would normally do.
Because you would do a preview for each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I believe in the routine of performance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to teach students how to be performers on a stage, they need to have those reps. They need to be on a stage. They need to know when to stand up, when to sit down. Soloists need to stand and to be acknowledged, and they need to know that, you know, we don't wave at the audience and all of those things. And this conductor is going to walk out and they're going to do this, and then this conductor is going to walk out and they're going to do this. And so, yeah, those preview concerts are more about preparing them for that experience. And I think it takes away some of the mystery, so that when you get to the actual event, you're like, oh yeah, we've done this already. We know what to do. And then they can relax and perform. So fortunately for us, both of the actual performances went way better than the previews.
Oh, okay.
Good. What other extra performances did you add out of your normal routine?
So we added some additional combined concerts with our feeders. And we added a chamber music concert with our concert band kids.
Which is your middle level, or okay.
And then this year we did, because our county just built a brand new performing arts center, really beautiful facility. Because it's the facility seats 1,800 people, we were able to do a fine arts night, which we've never been able to do because we don't really have access to the high school auditoriums on a regular basis. When we do, it's very hit or miss. And a lot of the high school stages, while they're nice, the seating is pretty small. So like if we took our chorus, which is really large, and we took our band program, which is really large, and we brought drama, we would like blow out the sides. So even if we had access to the actual facilities, which we don't, we wouldn't fit. So when we had access to this new facility, we added a fine arts night, which was pretty cool. Started with drama. The drama, they sang some numbers. They didn't do like full costuming, but they sang some numbers from their musical. And then our chorus sang some music from their spring concert program, which I think included one of their LGPE pieces that was, they did Frank Tikelli's Earth Song.
Oh yeah, it's a great one.
And then the band played, and we, because we wanted to make it as inclusive as possible, and because I felt like the 8th graders really persevered, we included all of our 8th graders plus our 7th grade symphonic. Nice. So it was a big band. It was like 130.
Wow.
And that was, it was a whole nother experience trying to.
Well, tell us about your numbers. I know in the car when we picked you up, you had mentioned numbers before, during, and after. Could you go over that again?
So pre-COVID, we were 1920. That year, we were the biggest we'd ever been. We were 482.
482, and the school population of
1,300.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Oh my goodness.
The shutdown happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was like down here, but in Georgia, they said that, we're going to have virtual school. We were trying to figure out how to do that. None of us really knew what we were going to do with our kids and how we were going to make it meaningful and relevant and not overly whelming, because we knew everybody was struggling with the complexity of the whole situation. But when the minute they said, whatever grade you have, the day of the shutdown is the grade you're going to end with, most of our kids checked out.
Whoa.
They said that?
Yeah. It was called do no harm.
Everyone want
I think it was from the federal level, but I may be wrong on that. So we had kids, like we were doing daily like Google Meets, and we were giving individual help sessions, and we were doing different things to help the kids, but most of our kids checked out. And then when we came back in August of 20, because our students in our county did not have a virtual option, we only had 160 students in band.
482 to 160. Okay.
And then over the course of 2021, so the students last year, they could be virtual 100% of the time, they could be in person 100% of the time, or they could be what we call hybrid, which was you do your coursework online and then you come to school for one class period or two. You could choose. And so for us, we had hybrid students because we were socially distanced and we were using bell covers. We did have some students who only came to band class. And over the course of the year, because we were able to do that with the social distancing, we did grow by about 20 students over the course of the year. So we ended the year at 180 something. and we were prepared for whatever was going to happen next. Our biggest concern was getting our numbers over 300 because that's an important metric for our second director. He was not going to lose his job because of where his contract was, but what probably would have happened is he would have been teaching a lot of general music, which was not something he was interested in, and he might have explored other options.
Do you currently have general music at your school?
We do. He did have to teach 2 sections because of the imbalance on some of our numbers. The first semester, and then the second semester only had to teach 1 section of it.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Where in this did you, because you mentioned earlier recruiting.
So when we went from 180, which we ended up in 21, we did actively recruit students to join band in 7th grade and 8th grade who had not previously been in band. We also tried to recruit students who had been in band in 6th grade to get them to come back. And then we tried to recruit students who had signed up for band in 6th grade but didn't show up to come back. And so the combination of returning students, new students, and a pretty high retention rate, this past year we were at 366.
All right. And do you know what you're going to be next year, give or take?
We're like 427.
427. Okay. Congrats. I'm sure that took a lot of work. Could you maybe share the type of recruiting you were doing? Maybe for each different metric that you mentioned, like how did you recruit 7th and 8th graders? Was it different than recruiting, incoming 6th graders?
Well, so it was hard last year, in particular because we did not have in-person access. I believe that recruiting is a face-to-face process. It's done best. I think recruiting people, we have to see the person, and we have to feel like, yeah, that's something not only am I interested in the subject, but the person leading the subject matters. And so it was hard. So we did a recruiting video between me and my chorus. So me and my chorus colleague, we do a lot of things together, and one of the things we've always done together is recruit. So we recruit music. We recruit the musical experience. We recruit being on a team. We recruit learning how to express yourself and all the benefits. And I think the old adage of rising tides lift all boats. So it's helped both our programs grow. And we have been able to share students as a result of that. We're in this together. We're reaching for the same population, and so that helped that we were doing basically the same thing together. So it was a unified message.
But you did a video.
We did a video.
Who did that air to, and how often?
We shared it via our school social media. We shared it via the email server that the school uses, where they can access all the students who are zoned to the school. We had some flyers. We also did some informational meetings online, which those links were sent out, like come find out about band. And that was really the only face-to-face time we were able to get.
How many of those meetings did you end up doing?
We did 2 of them.
Okay.
We did one in February, because that's when initial numbers and stuff come out and they start looking at staffing. So that was kind of our initial push. And then I think it was late March or early April, we did like hey, it's not too late. And we did another follow-up. And I think we had some people who did both, like came to both meetings. And then I think we had some people that went to the first, didn't go to the second. And so for us, the important metric was to get over 300. And once we realized we were getting over that, we started to feel pretty good. With our elementaries, it was a little different because each elementary school could determine how we were going to interact. So one elementary school allowed us to go speak to them face to face, but we could talk no longer than 5 minutes.
What?
And then one elementary allowed us to do a Microsoft Teams meeting, but required that the camera be off. So we were just a voice talking through a box.
Why? Curious.
I never got an answer.
Is that probably the same
security issue you had mentioned before, maybe?
Possibly. I was never going to answer. I don't want to speculate.
Yeah.
One school allowed us to do a conventional Teams meeting, so you could see our face, we could see them, they could raise their hand, I could, it was almost like being in the room with them. And interestingly enough, that's our smallest feeder. We only get about 35 kids from that school, but between band and chorus, 31 of them joined either band or chorus.
Okay.
So again, correlation's not causation, but that's pretty compelling correlational data.
So you get your school gets 35 kids from that feeder.
That one elementary.
And 31 of those kids.
Oh, okay.
Sign up for band or chorus.
Can you expound upon more?
But the fourth elementary wouldn't let us in the building, and they wouldn't let us do teams.
Okay.
So the only way we interacted with them was via emails and like flyers and the recruiting video that we had created.
And now that lack of interaction, was that something new because of COVID? Or
Yes. So because of COVID,
I just don't get it.
The building level administrators got to choose, and as expected, the program where we had the least interaction was the one with the fewest students joining. That made our sixth grade recruiting pretty frustrating. We still did okay though. Our sixth grade this year was 149.
Cool.
And going into next year, we were able to retain a lot of those kids, and then we've added a few.
As seventh grade beginners.
And so next year's seventh grade class has 144.
That's awesome.
Good. So with that, retention and also with recruiting, you mentioned the person leading matters. What does that mean to you? What do you think of when you say that, or what made you come to believe that?
I think that's true of sports. I think it's true. You look at great sports teams, the person who's hired as the coach makes a big difference. And I mean, let's face it, there's people that go to play at Alabama because Nick Saban's the coach. And of course there's other things that come with that, but I think that person in front matters. My personal experience has been when students go from elementary to middle, it's kind of an intimidating process. They go from king of the hill to bottom of the hill. The teachers tell them that middle school is going to be so much harder. Like they already see it as this big wall. And I think when you can talk with them in person and they can see you as, hey, this is somebody I think I could like, and I think somebody I could work with, and then you tell them about the program and they're like, oh, that sounds really fun, and I get to learn music and I get to go do these things, and you're like, wow, that really. Now you contrast that against something that's written down. When something is in a PowerPoint or when it's in a flyer or in an email, I found, and this has been true for a while, but people skim and a lot of times ignore. So when you put too much in writing, they'll either only get the parts that they skim through or they'll just delete. So I think your ability to have a captive audience that you can connect with is severely limited when your only resource is electronic.
Yep.
The kids are on that all the time, but a lot of their interaction online is short sentences.
Yeah.
Dialogue, banter, back and forth. Not a detailed document. I found that in my communication with my students when I share things in writing, I have about an 8-sentence maximum that I put out at any one time. If I put out more than that, I found that the students just don't read it. Or
That's true.
they'll read it and they'll get just enough information to be dangerous.
All right.
That's why we get questions like, "What time do we have to be there?"
So when you're talking,
Well, that's a whole nother thing. I think we have become so dependent on Google. I think they see teachers as Google or as Alexa.
Yeah, they do.
They're like, I don't need to read this. I can just go ask Mr. Gordon. I don't need that. I don't need to read this. I can just go ask Miss Todd. You know, like, we don't need to remember, hey, what time's the meeting? You're like, Alexa, what time is my faculty meeting? You know, we're guilty of it. What did she say?
Something about
10:43 p.m. or something.
You have a meeting at 10:43?
I hope not. Yeah, we do. A bottle of tequila, maybe.
No, but you know what we tell the kids when they come ask us that? You know it's online, right? Go read it.
Go look it up.
We won't tell them the answer.
Yeah, there's a flyer over there that has the information.
So,
things like
when
that.
we sent out the announcement of the students who made it into the All-State band, I always try to write a nice note for the students who tried out and don't make it. Mm-hmm. And I really do believe this. Like, a student who makes it to the second round of All-State has achieved something significant. Mm-hmm. They're already in an elite group because they qualified. They're in an elite group because they chose to audition. And even if they don't make it, they've grown from that experience. They've grown by taking the chance. They've grown by working to prepare. They've grown by getting to a certain level. And so I always try to write this really nice paragraph. And then I also have to give information about the students who made All-State. Like, you need to make sure you have a hotel room, and you need to make sure that, you know, you have these dates blocked off, and this is how the trip works. Mm-hmm. And then here are the names. Okay, so what does everybody do?
Go right to the names.
They skim to the names, right? Mm-hmm. And then I always put at the bottom, because the way Georgia works is they get feedback from the first round. Like, they know their score, and they, you know, I did well on scales and pretty good on etude and didn't do so well on sight reading, or I messed up the chromatic scale but did well enough on the other things. But I always put a qualifier at the bottom, is we do not get any feedback if you did not make it. And I started using highlight feature on my emails. Mm-hmm. I even highlighted it. We do not have any information about how you did. If you didn't make it, again, congratulations for making to the second round. And I sent out the list, and we use a platform called It's Learning, mm-hmm. which is our kind of, some people have like Canvas and some people have other programs. So that has a messenger function that we can send messages to the students. And within 3 minutes of sending out the list, I had 3 emails from students going, hey, can you tell me how I did? I didn't make it.
Yeah.
And so basically what happened, I know what happened, was they skimmed the first part, went through the names, didn't see their name, and even though it was highlighted in yellow,
yep,
they didn't read it.
Yep.
But that email was longer than 8 sentences.
Yeah. There you go.
It's funny though, like, I feel like we all do that at some point, because, you know, we will complain about our parents doing that. Like, we put all this information out in our weekly, like, reminders, whatever, and they don't read it. They email us with questions. But we even do that, because sometimes I'll ask him questions and he'll be like, that was in that email that so-and-so sent out. Well, I'm like, I skimmed that one.
I have to triage my emails. So, like, there's some emails I don't read. I have to, like, focus on the ones. I have really limited planning time, so trying to get to everybody, I have to prioritize. So I'm guilty of it too. So this isn't a condemnation of our students.
Yeah.
It's a reality. We're inundated in written material.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. And we have limited amount of time, and we have to prioritize that time.
Yep.
And so we're not alone with that. But like when those students sent me those messages, I just like copy pasted.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Did you read the email?"
Yeah.
I would never say that to a parent. But to
Right.
a student, I think we need to teach them that like, if I took the time to give you this information, you need to take the time to try to read it.
Yeah.
I will say though, we don't respond to parents and say, "Did you read the email?" But we will like copy and paste if they have a question about something we sent out. We will copy and paste.
Per my last email.
No,
We don't say that.
I know.
But we just say, "Please see the highlighted portion below," or whatever.
Here's what I just sent out.
Yeah.
No. What I usually say is like, I know, because most of our emails that we send out are usually in large batches, and there are people who have spam blockers that are pretty tight. And so I always say, it looks like you didn't receive the email. Here's the information.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the communication type thing, so we were talking about recruiting, and you said, talking in person is a lot more effective than sending out written material. What does that look like? What is the in-person meeting or presentation or communication look like for you when you're at your feeders?
So I have a couple short documents about like, why should you join band? And I essentially
I think we stole one of those actually and kind of molded it.
I just talk through those real quickly.
Okay.
I tell them that, learning a musical instrument, it can be something that can enrich your whole life. It's not just to do band in 6th grade. It's something that you can really do, and it's going to make you more human. And then we talk about the benefits of being in a large
robot.
But really,
I think
The band T-shirt next year. I am not a robot. Okay, sorry.
The benefits of being in a large group. So the middle school student in particular is very conscious of the group, and so I think providing them with a stable peer group that has a shared common purpose is really important developmentally for them, and it's something that's attractive to them. I also talk about the things that we do beyond the standard curriculum. So it's not just come to band every day and then go home like you're in math class.
Yeah.
Like we do things beyond the classroom that add meaning and value to the overall experiences, and these will be the things that you remember. A big message that I emphasize is that band and chorus, like I said, we do all of our recruiting together because what we're really selling is the same thing, is that we're inclusive. Like there's a place for everybody, and it doesn't matter what experience you had or have. We have a place for you, and some of you are going to want to grow up to be like a great musician, and a lot of you are just going to want to have fun playing your instrument, and we have a place for you. There's a lot of programs at our school, and this isn't a slight to any of them, it's a fact. There's a lot of programs that are exclusive. We have a nationally, world level team, robotics team. It's exclusive. Like, you either make it or you don't. And a lot of kids don't. I have a lot of kids try out, and they cut more than they take. Our other elite programs in our school, they cut out kids, whereas we have a place for everybody. And then the other thing that I try to really emphasize is that you can do band and you can do other things, because our kids come to us involved in a lot of stuff, and that's always one of the big things that is a big concern. That if I do band, can I still play soccer? Absolutely. Can I do band and still do karate? Yes. Can I do band and still be in scouting? Yes. Can I do band and be in my church group? Yes. Because in 6th grade, we don't do after school rehearsals. We have open morning band every day. Students can come in at 7:45 to 8:45 to practice, and that's optional. And then we have band class.
Which
and then we have
stole that from you too.
We have additional opportunities like solo and ensemble, 6th grade honor band. We do allow 6th graders to try out for district honor band if they've played previously and are taking private lessons.
Okay.
Just because there's no part of the audition process that we cover in the 6th grade class.
Right.
So they're not going to
gain time for that.
Well,
audition,
no.
Right?
I mean, by the time we get to that first audition, we've only done a couple scales. So,
Right.
So we would not have covered the 4 scales. We don't do chromatic until 3rd quarter.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
So, and plus the etude, all the rhythmic vocabulary that's required in sight reading. So that's the only one. Like, we have kids who try out for All-State music drumming who don't take private lessons in 7th and 8th grade. But in 6th grade, that's the one requirement. That's the one caveat that they have.
Yeah.
So the 6th graders who want to do more have that opportunity. I also am a big believer in 6th grade that the amount that you practice is not as important as the quality of the time. And most young musicians, one, don't have the mental discipline to practice for a long time. And brass players in particular don't have the physical endurance to practice effectively for a long period of time. And so for me, I always tell my students that 15 minutes every day is way more valuable than 30 minutes here, 45 minutes here.
Yeah.
It's the continuity of the practice that's more important than the amount of time. And I always try to emphasize this with my students is please don't make practice a jail sentence. Like when because I'll have parents that are like, okay, I'm renting an instrument, you're going to practice 30 minutes every day.
Yeah.
And if you make it a jail sentence, then they're gonna do the minimum. They're not gonna really be engaged.
Yeah.
And so I tell my students that practice is the one homework that you do for you. All the other homework you do to get a grade, all the other homework you do is to make, whatever. But practicing your instrument is the one homework you do for you.
I like that.
And then the more you do it,
Christian's taking notes over there.
the more you do it, the more you're going to want to do it.
Yeah.
But for me, I found that with my students, if I tell them just start with 15 minutes, because if they have a lot going on and you tell them, hey, you really need to go home and practice 45 minutes every day, and they already got a lot going on, they're already stressed because of the homework here and this class and this, they're just going to go like, yeah, I can't do that. Like I can't put that much more on my plate. And so really what we want them to do is just spend 15 minutes getting better at one thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of every class, I try to tell them, okay, the one thing I want you to work on tonight is rhythms for this. Or tonight, the one thing I want you to work on is your fingerings for this. And it might be different for different instruments. So like flutes in particular, when we first start, we really want to push a lot of time on the head joint so that they can just focus on their embouchure. Whereas I might be doing, I might not spend the same amount of time with, say, a clarinet. Just because clarinet and barrel is way more, doing 15 minutes of that is way harder than 15 minutes of head joint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I might tell my flutes, I just want you to work on your head joint, and I want you to try to see how long you can hold out a note with a consistent tone.
Yeah.
Or sometimes with the flutes too, and I do this with my double reeds a lot, the finger patterns are complicated. The finger patterns for clarinets when you first start are super easy.
Yep.
But flute, they're really hard.
Like
especially
going E flat to F a few times or C to D.
Yeah.
Like
C to D
Yeah.
is really hard. And if you haven't played piano or done something that involved the coordination of all 9 of your 10 fingers,
all phalanges.
Yeah, that's hard. And so sometimes I'll just say, flutes, the only thing I want you to work on tonight is F to E flat. And just hold your flute on your shoulder, and while you're watching TV, practice F to E flat until you don't want to do it anymore. And and I tell my flutes that you're the one instrument that can't see your fingers. So you have to be able to do it by feel. Bassoons technically too.
that's true. Yeah.
But at least the bassoon hand is still in front.
Because your flute players go like this.
And they're
You
like
have to reset everything.
break their neck.
So that's why we spend a lot of time with just fingers, with the fingers in front, so they can actually see their fingers until they can move without looking. And that's what I tell them is that's the metric. Can you move your fingers correctly without looking?
I never thought about having them
Just put it in front of them. Yeah.
Put it in front of them so they can see it, because that's true.
Have they ever looked at their fingers while they play? That's a really, really good question. Yeah.
And like, I'm a flute player. I haven't. Yeah. I've always just told them, you can't see it. You just got to feel it. But there's that step between where they probably should.
Well, so, the way we teach our beginners is we teach rhythm, notes, fingers, and then we work
on... like note naming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we do on air to work on articulation, and then we play.
You say all-inclusive, there's a place for everyone, but some would also argue that not all kids are band kids. And it might be harder for you to focus on the kids that are if your band hall is full of kids that just aren't the, quote, type.
Well, as a profession, we have a bad rap of teach the best, ignore the rest. And I didn't become a music educator to just teach the best. I became a music educator to teach kids music. And I very much believe in the adage that there's a lot of kids that need music more than music needs them. And if our sole purpose is to create high-performing ensembles, then we are not servicing a large portion of our populations. So
true.
Can you have both? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think
so. You can have a high-performing ensemble for the student that's highly motivated and is willing to put in the extra work. And can you provide a quality experience that's challenging and rigorous, but matches the ability and motivation of the students that you have at a level below that? And I think the answer is also yes. And we've been able to do that for the most part at South. Like some years are better than others. And, do we have students that are disruptive? Yes. Do we have some students that are undermotivated? Yes. I think if you only teach the easy ones, the old adage, the greater the climb, the greater the glory, I think you miss out on some opportunities. And some of I have several students over the course of my career that you never know when the light's going to click on for that student.
I remember hearing about those in some of your presentations.
I have a student who we started band in 5th grade. At the end of his first year, it was only 2 days a week, but at the end of his first year, he sat on stage, didn't play a note, and was going to quit. And parents were going through a divorce, and there was a lot of other things going on. Mom wanted him to quit. Dad said no. Dad said, "You didn't even try. You're going to do this again." And he did it.
Yes, Dad.
And then in 6th grade, they had band every day, which helped.
Yeah.
It was a really good band program. That also helped. And he slowly started to get better. 7th grade, he squeaked his way into symphonic band, which was a huge...
Clarinet?
Saxophone.
Oh, okay.
Huge accomplishment.
It says squeaks.
Saxophone squeak.
Yeah, they do.
So do oboes.
Hey, flutes can too.
Okay.
It's true. Overblow those harmonics.
Yes. Get it.
And I had one this year.
Oh.
It was frustrating. But then he climbed his way up. He was last chair, but then climbed his way up. 8th grade, made district honor band. 9th grade, made district honor band. 10th grade, first chair in the state.
Wow.
Then he was first chair in the state, and went to IU for a performance degree.
Ooh, that's a bad right there.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
So,
You were his teacher? You were his band director?
I was his band director through his
middle school
9th grade year.
Oh, okay.
So I moved schools in his 10th grade year.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I was his band director. I was the assistant at the middle school and the assistant at the high school.
I
and
see.
Went back and forth.
Very
and I
cool.
started him in 5th grade. And then I had another student who was in the concert band all the way through 6th grade. In 9th grade, he was last chair clarinet in our bottom band. And then he, after that audition, came to me and he said, Dr. Poor, I hate being last chair. What can I do? And so I started working with him a little bit. He got a little bit better, and then going into 10th grade, he was last chair symphonic band. So he climbed up a band, but now he's back at the bottom.
Still tired of being last chair.
And then he climbed up over the course of the year. And then in the beginning of his 11th grade year, he squeaked into wind ensemble, again last chair, but had tried out for All-State in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. Had never passed the first round. And then he started studying with Lisa Oberlander in his junior year.
Shout out, go Cougs!
In his junior year, and then I think he was second chair in the state his senior year. So the freshman version of that student would have been one of those students that you would go, no, I'm not going to waste my time.
Mm-hmm.
And by not giving up on him and by not assuming, because that's what a lot of people are doing when they make those choices.
Yep.
I think the complexity of music puts a lot of pressure on our brains in different ways, and I think it takes some students longer for all those layers to click.
Yes.
And it takes different approaches and different ways of presenting it. It takes density of repetitions and opportunities musically. All those things play a factor. But more importantly, this particular student was socially awkward and struggled with that whole component. And I think their high school experience would have been very different if they hadn't stayed in music. Mm-hmm. And obviously their life changed radically because they went to Columbus State.
Wow. You know, I'm thinking of one of our students that is having kind of this type of breakthrough player that we talked about recently, who's been
Today?
like staying after school. No, the one.
Oh,
you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
But he's struggled for a year and a half in our program and hasn't really
and recently
progressed much.
He's like, I'm about to be in 8th grade and I'm still on this level.
We started offering some all-state and all-county audition help sessions before and after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays right here, the last month and a half of school. And he's come to all the after-school ones, and the kid has a fantastic sound, and he's playing multiple octave scales.
Learning them and taking the time to practice them.
Yeah.
I had a student this year who.
Well, I was just going to say for that student, just real quick, he earned a superior at Solon Ensemble, and I don't think he thought he would, and that turned him on to I'm going to be a
Well,
it was cool.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like I said, success is a powerful. Progress is a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
I had a student. Speaking of the shutdown, so she was in 6th grade band, kind of struggled on flute. Then we shut down in March of 20, and she was one of the ones that didn't come back. And she showed up in January of 21 and had not played her flute since March of 20.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
And had forgotten everything from how to form their mouth to what the note names were to what the fingerings were, and the mountain that she had to climb was mind-boggling, and I honestly expected her to just give up when she realized how far behind she was. Mm-hmm. But she kept trying, and kept working. She tried out for district honor band, didn't make it, and it was because of her sight reading. Her tone was great, her scales were good, her etude was strong, but her sight reading, and in Georgia, the way that first round goes is it's so competitive in the flute that if you don't sight read well,
you're out.
Yeah, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
And so I think she scored like an 81, but like the cutoff for honor band was like an 87. You know, so an 81 is still really good because that means you did well on a lot of things. You know, 81 was like 5th chair trumpets. So
Yeah.
you know, it's that's and then
The cutoff score for each instrument is different.
Right.
Yeah, the flutes get way up there. Like
I thought when
like
we were in
90.
Georgia it was 90.
No, it's 85.
No, 85. Okay.
But
I mean,
we
in the
have a
second
lot
round though. I think the kids that make it in the second round, I know they don't release that stuff, but like that score's got to be up there.
You know, there's some kids. This always baffles me.
Well, that's because there's 2 sight reading in the second round.
Yeah.
It's 2 etudes, 2 sight reading.
I know in some places in Georgia, Atlanta area, maybe Cobb County, where kids make their all-county band, but they don't make the all-state band. Or is it? No, they make the all-state band, but they don't make their all-county band.
Or district.
Or district band, yeah.
Because of that happens in my district sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, for whatever reason, there's a couple instrument groupings that are particularly strong. And we'll have saxophones that will have passed the first round, but the cutoff to make honor band was a little bit higher than what they were, and then they'll make all state, but they didn't make district honor band.
That's so crazy.
You got Brandon Taylor up there.
Whenever that does happen, we have 2 honor bands. We have an honor band and a clinic band. When that does happen, we always add them to the clinic band if they want.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yeah.
We had that happen with a Barry sax player recently. So we take a Barry sax player in the honor band and then the one in the clinic band, and he was the 3rd highest scorer, and he passed the first round. And then the honor band Barry made all state, and then the guy who was the alternate made it, and then the one who made the clinic band didn't.
I see.
So we carried 2 Barrys in the clinic band.
Nothing wrong with that. When it comes to communicating, because we talked about earlier 8 sentence maximum in a lot of your writing, and don't put too much in writing and things like that. But what is your process, or what are you in the habit of doing when it comes to communicating with your students and your parents about updating them on concerts and expectations and deadlines and things like that? Like, what do you typically do? Come back for the release of part 2 of this chat on August 24th.